synthesizing historical materials about the Philippines. Rizal realized that there are numerous materials about the Philippines and Filipinos. He also recognized the generous assistance extended to him by Ross and Blumentritt. Rizal conceived of the organization of an International Association of Filipinologists. The organization remained an association of the best of friends. He also informed Blumentritt of the tentative agenda for the first conference, Philippines under Spanish rule before and after 1808. Rizal and the Exposition of 1889. Kidlat Club on March 19, 1899. Indios Bravos or Brave Indians replaced the Kidlat Club. Members of this organization vowed to excel in intellectual and physical prowess in order to gain the admiration of foreigners, practice with great enthusiasm the use of the sword and pistol, and Rizal taught them judo, an art of self-defense that he learned in Japan. RDLM Society. According to Dr. Lienzo Lopez Rizal, grandnephew of the hero, the society has a symbol or countersign represented by a circle divided into three parts, by two semicircles having in the center the interlocked letters I and B, meaning Indios Bravos, and the letter RDLM placed outside and upper, lower, left, and right sides of the circle. The letter RDLM are believed to be the initials of the society's secret name, Redemption de los Malayos or Redemption of the Malay race. The aim of the secret society, as stated by Rizal, was the propagation of all useful knowledge, scientific, artistic, and literary in the Philippines. Other activities and accomplishments in Paris. In this city, he wrote the satirical essay entitled For Telefono, under the pen name Dimas Alang, in answer to the attacks made by Father Font against his novel Noli Me Tangere. It was in Paris also when he conceived a project, which is the establishment of a modern college on Hong Kong. The plan did not materialize, although an initial capital of 40,000 pesos was pledged by Mariano Cunanan, a Filipino resident in Paris. Two of his essays worth mentioning are the Sobre la Indolencia de los Filipinos, or the Indolence of the Filipinos, and Filipinas de Tradition Años, or the Philippines a century hence.
The Sobre la Indolencia de los Filipinos. It was the longest essay written by Rizal, which was published in 5 installments in the La Solidaridad from July 15 to September 15, 1890. This essay represents his defense of the Filipinos from the charge that they were inherently lazy or indolent. There were factors that fostered indolence attributable to the Spanish colonizers. First, wars and internal disorder that followed Spanish conquest. Second, piratical attacks on coastal towns and villages by Muslim pirates. Third, forced labor in shipbuilding. Fourth, government's neglect and apathy to agriculture, industry, and commerce. Fifth, absence of material and moral incentives to work harder. Sixth, the teaching of the Spanish missionaries that heaven is for the poor. Seventh, too much government restriction and red tape in the approval of permit to transact business. Eighth, encouragement and propagation of gambling. Ninth, ownership of the big estates by the friars. 10th, example set by the Spaniards in disdaining manual labor. Lastly, deprivation of human dignity. Indolence of the Filipinos stemmed not only from factors attributable to Spanish colonizers. There were also factors attributable to the Filipinos themselves. First, feeling of inferiority. Second, placing hopes on miracles. Third, lack of spirit to pursue lofty purposes. Fourth, lack of national sentiment. Rizal concluded his essay by stressing the need for good education and liberty as the keys to achieving progress progress in the Philippines and in solving the problem of indolence.
Cognizant of the relevance of historical events in the life of the people, Rizal felt that it was high time to remind Spain that the forces and circumstances that ushered in the French and Spanish revolutions could have a telling effect for her in the Philippines. He therefore wrote Filipinas dentro de 100 años, or The Philippines a century hence, to forecast the future of the country within 100 years. The aforementioned essay came out as a series of 4 articles in the La Solidaridad from September 30, 1889 to February 1, 1890. This essay starts with an analysis of the causes of the miseries of the people. One of the causes identified in this article was Spain's implementation of her military policies. A second cause of this misery was the deterioration and disappearance of Filipino indigenous culture. A third cause of this miserable condition of the people was their passivity and submissiveness to the Spanish colonizers. One question raised by Rizal in this essay was, could Spain prevent the progress of the Philippines? Should Spain decide to do so, what could she possibly do? Keep the people ignorant? Keep the people in poverty? Or exterminate the Filipino race? Keeping the people ignorant had failed. Recourse to impoverishment also was futile. Extermination of the people as an alternative to hindering progress was an impossibility according to Rizal. Can the divide et impera or divide and rule policy still work to foster enmity between and among natives? To Rizal, this would no longer be effective owing to the ease of movement in the archipelago brought about by improved means of transportation. With the facility of travel in the islands, the people's opportunity to exchange ideas can be enhanced. This, in effect, can lead them to realize their common plight, which can foster in them greater unity as a people. Thus, Spain has no way of blocking reforms and progress people sought for. What does this imply then? There is a need for Spain to change her colonial policy in the Philippines. This policy, according to Rizal, has to be compatible with the needs of the people and relevant to the pace of the rising nationalism of the people. Should Spain not alter her colonial policy? The people will then be forced by circumstance to seek civil liberties and national identity apart from the mother country. If Spain will not be replaced either by a European or an Asian power, which country then will be interested in what Spain has to give up? To Rizal, this country is none other than the United States of America, which he labeled as the Great American Republic, considering that her interests lie in the Pacific and which has no hand in the scramble of what Rizal envisioned in this essay came true. On May 1, 1898, the Americans entered the Philippines and wrested from Spain the control of the Philippines. 50 years after Rizal's death, the independence of the country was recognized on July 4, 1946. This was an fulfillment of what predicted in his essay. He was a visionary and very prophetic when he said that history does not record in its annals any lasting domination by one people over another. Of different races, of diverse usage and customs, of opposite and divergent ideas, one of the two had to yield and succumb. Rizal left Paris for Brussels, Belgium on January 28, 1890. His departure from this city was brought about by two reasons. The cost of living in Paris has become so exorbitant. In addition to this, Rizal could not resist the gay social life in Paris, which interfered in the writing of his second novel, El Filibusterismo. Accompanied by Jose Alberto, Rizal transferred to Brussels and resided in a boarding house on 38 Rue Champagne managed by Suzanne and Marie Jacobi. Jose Alejandro, an engineering student, stayed with Rizal when Jose Alberto left the city. As a surgeon, he spent time attending and treating patients, which enabled him to meet the basic essential to survive in the city. To make him physically fit, he continued his gymnastic and target practice. Nonetheless, he spent a large bulk of his time writing his second novel, as well as articles for the La Solidaridad. In defense of the oppressed Filipinos, Rizal wrote the following articles which were published in the La Solidaridad while he was in Brussels. 1. A la defensa or to the defense. 2. La verdad para todos or the truth for all. 3. Vicente Barrientos Teatro Tagalog. 4. Una propanación or a propanación. 5. Verdades nuevas or new truths. 6. Crueldad or cruelty. 7. Diferencias or differences. 8. Inconsecuencias or inconsequences. 9. Llanto y risas or tears and laughters. 10. Ingratitudes or ingratitude.
Criticism of Filipinos' passion for gambling. While in Brussels, Rizal was informed by Juan Luna and Valentin Ventura that many of his fellow expatriates in Madrid had become too much preoccupied with gambling. They wanted Rizal to do something about this, considering that they were in Europe not for the purpose of indulging in games of chance, but to carry out a noble mission, that of working for the freedom of the country. Rizal responded by sending Marcelo del Pilar a letter, dated May 28, 1890, reminding his fellow Filipinos that their mission in Europe was to work for the freedom of the Philippines. Disturbing news from home. While in Brussels, Rizal received a disturbing news from Calamba that the agrarian problem had worsened. Annual payment for land rental was increased, resulting into the forcible eviction of the tenants from the land, including Rizal's family. Pasiano, together with Antonio Lopez and Silvestre Ubaldo, were rusticated to Mindoro. This illegal deportation made him very depressed. The premonition of Rizal. Rizal experienced sleepless and restless nights. Although he was not a superstitious man, he could not help entertain the thought of dying. His last wish was to finish his second novel, El Filibusterismo. The plan to return to the Philippines. Because of the misfortune suffered by Rizal's family, Rizal planned to return to the Philippines. Rizal's compatriots and friends in Europe were stunned and horrified with his decisions, knowing that he was already a marked man for the friars. Pasiano informed Rizal that the case against Dominicans was lost. The case was appealed to the Audiencia Real Madrid. With this information, Rizal changed his mind to return to the Philippines. Instead, he decided to move into Madrid to supervise the handling of the case. A Mimosa, to my muse. This poem was written by Rizal in 1890 as a result of his disenchantment over the lukewarm attitude of the Filipino expatriates in Spain working for reforms from the Spanish government. According to Romero, Romana, and Santos, this poem expresses Rizal's bitterness over land troubles in Calamba. Rizal's affair with Suzanne Jacobi. While Rizal was in Belgium, he had an affair with Suzanne, one of the pretty nieces of his landladies. Suzanne fell in love with him due to his charm and dignified manners. Suzanne shed her tears of sadness and grief upon knowing that Rizal had left for Madrid. She expressed her sadness by writing a letter to Rizal.